Welcome to Babies from Beyond, the podcast that gives all babies a voice, whether they are still in spirit or already earthside. I'm Lauren Dionysius, a former registered NICU nurse turned baby soul communicator, and I'm here to share the wisdom of today's babies to guide you on your motherhood journey. So today I want to dive into a concept that often causes a lot of frustration, disappointment, and certainly confusion when it comes to a baby's biological sex. And this is because we need to understand the difference between a baby's soul energy and their chosen biological sex here on Earth, especially if you are connecting with your baby's soul before they've conceived. So usually when we tune into a baby in spirit, we get a sense, right? We get a sense of them being more masculine or more feminine. And that's fine. In my experience, this is true and this is important. It gives us some great insight into their nature, their energy, even their qualities that they may bring to Earth with them, their personality. But where a lot of us get tripped up, me included in my early days of doing this work, is that their soul's energy, that masculine or feminine soul energy, does not always correlate with the biological sex of the baby. So if we bring this concept into our own journeys, you know, you have both masculine and feminine qualities. And whether you are biologically male or female, you'll use more of your masculine energy when you need to take action and get things done. And you'll also use more of your feminine energy when you're feeling creative or intuitive or sensitive. So I'm trying to highlight here that it's important to realize that the masculine or feminine energy is not a reliable indicator of biological sex. So if we bring this back to the baby soul realms, if you sense a feminine baby soul around you, this is not predictive, nor is it a guarantee that you're going to have a baby girl. And if you're sensing a masculine baby soul around you, this is also not predictive of having a baby boy. It's too simplistic, it's too rigid, it's too black and white. And in my experience, and trust me on this, it's just not accurate. What I've learned is that it's 50% accurate at best. And I'll go more into this in a moment. So when I sense a masculine baby soul who's still in spirit, they have not conceived yet, I tend to feel them as this strong, confident, direct, and sometimes a little harsh or abrupt energy. But it's important to understand that these are their qualities on the soul level. This is about the soul's energy and those innate qualities that a soul's energy has when they are still in spirit. And also these qualities and this energy will often accompany the soul to Earth, and it can often play out in the child's personality or even qualities that they may wish to grow into here on Earth as they get older. So masculine baby souls can be biologically male or female. As I said, there's a maximum 50% correlation with this, and it's not predictive. It's also not an indicator of gender identity or sexuality either. That's a much more complex topic that I will cover at some point, but not today. So when we sense a feminine baby soul around us, they come through often with a gentle, soft, intuitive, sensitive, And sometimes they can seem a little more indecisive or more of a go with the flow type energy. And they often communicate more through emotions. They'll share emotions with us. And again, these are all about the soul's energy and the qualities that the soul is capable of being imprinted with. And these qualities can also then form part of the child's personality or something for them to work on or explore here on earth, like I've just mentioned with the masculine souls. And again, nothing to do with gender or sexuality. So I've learned about this concept the hard way very early on in doing this work. And this was when I started to assume, especially when I started working with women and connecting with souls preconception, I wrongly assumed that if I felt a masculine soul around a woman in her energy field, it must mean that a baby boy was on the way. And vice versa, if I felt a more feminine baby soul around a woman, it must mean that she's having a baby girl. But I was wrong. In about 50% of cases, I was wrong. So this really forced me in many ways to question what I was experiencing and question my interpretation of what I was picking up and what I was sensing. So let's think about this. We're moving more away from these stereotypes around boys being strong, confident, direct, harsh at times, and girls being soft, gentle, intuitive, sensitive, arty, creative, all of these things. Because we all know gentle, intuitive men in our life. And we also know strong, confident women. So these are perfect examples of the soul's energy coming through in the personality of the human rather than in the biology, if that makes sense. So circling back to baby souls, this is where I see so many women going wrong when they sense a baby around them. And I have to say, with respect, this is also where a lot of psychics can go wrong as well when it comes to working with a baby's soul or spirit babies. And this is where women wrongly assume that because they feel a masculine energy around them, that they're going to have a baby boy, and that a feminine feeling soul is going to be a girl. And this can lead to what I call gender disappointment, when you find out a boy is coming when you've been feeling a baby girl around you, possibly for years. And this can bring up all sorts of doubts and confusions and questions. And obviously the same is if you've been feeling a boy around you and suddenly a girl is on the way. And this, can be a little more complex, so I don't want to simplify this too much because, as I mentioned in the last episode, baby souls can come and go as well. So it can be a different soul to what you had previously been sensing. But when women say to me, I can feel a baby girl around me or I can feel a baby boy around me, I always ask, how do you know that? Like, where did that come from? And that's not that I'm doubting them, but it's more to help understand where they're getting that information from and to see whether it's based on an assumption, whether it's based on this assumption that I'm feeling a baby boy, but what you're really feeling is a masculine energy, and therefore you're incorrectly assuming that that masculine energy is going to come as a boy. So instead, it's about understanding what you're sensing and what you're feeling. So when you are sensing a baby who's still in spirit, or you're feeling a baby girl or a baby boy around you, remember that you are sensing their soul's energy because they're not yet a human child. They haven't yet landed here on the earth. They haven't yet come into form. So it's important to remember this and to not assume then that a masculine soul is a boy or a feminine soul is a girl. And just to add another little spanner into the works here, sometimes a soul's energy can come through as the role they were playing in their previous life. So, for example, if you are sensing a masculine soul energy around you, it could simply be that, but it can also be influenced by who they were, say, in their most recent previous life. Perhaps they were male in their previous life and they're still carrying some of that energy with them as well. So again, I could open a can of worms here and possibly already have in this conversation, but it's just important to be careful where you're making these assumptions and what they're based on. So that leads me to, can you actually find out a baby's biological sex before they conceive? The answer is yes. It's not that it's always a mystery. Sometimes you can find out, but again, in my experience, you need to ask them directly and you need to ask them specifically and allow them to tell you what their plan is, because they're the ones that know, right? We, as I've been sharing, are mostly assuming these things. So these days, I do not predict the biological sex of a baby unless they tell me directly or they show me an image. Some babies will project an image of themselves, often as a toddler for some reason, sometimes an older child, but normally a toddler. And it will be very clear to me using gender stereotypes whether they are a boy or a girl. And when that happens, then I can have some level of confidence around what they are planning to be in this life. So some are very clear and they will tell me or they will show me an image. And because they will have already decided what biological sex they're coming as, because perhaps it's a really important part of their journey on the earth. And so they've made that decision. They know they want to be a boy or they know they want to be a girl for whatever reason, because that's going to allow them to execute their life's plan or their agreements or their soul's purpose for coming to the earth at this time. But there are some babies who haven't decided yet. Some may still be in the planning stage. And even though when it comes to planning a life here on earth, I don't believe that everything is set in stone before we come to earth and we then come here just to be robots and live out that plan. I don't believe that. But not all babies have made these decisions when we can sense them or feel them. So sometimes, whether it's a masculine soul or a feminine soul, some are still planning and they haven't made that decision yet. And some babies don't actually care that much about the biological sex. It's something that is much more important to us here on earth. And it's something that we as humans put a lot of emphasis on. Often one of the first questions people will ask you when you find out you're pregnant is it a boy or a girl? Or are you finding out if it's a boy or a girl? So it's important for us here on earth, but often it's not as important for babies in spirit. And sometimes some babies don't care that much. Some of them don't actually make a decision. They're just like, I'll see what happens when that sperm and that egg comes together and decide. For some it's more about the genetics of that embryo rather than the biological sex. There's all kinds of opportunities or possibilities when it comes to having a body here on earth, and only one of those is the biological sex. So as I mentioned, some are very clear and they know what biological sex they want to come as. They've chosen it. They've made that decision because it's important for them. Others haven't decided yet, especially if they're still planning their life here. Some don't actually care that much and they're more, we'll see what happens. But sometimes it's also not helpful for us to know. Sometimes it's not for our highest good to know the biological sex of our next child. And sometimes it's not in their highest good to tell us. So we need to honour and respect that as well. So to wrap up today's episode, I just want to be really clear about this concept of masculine and feminine soul energies, especially preconception. Things can be a little clearer when baby's on their way during pregnancy or they are already earthside. But in saying that, there's a lot of baby girls I'm sensing that have a more masculine soul energy and vice versa. But it's this idea that the masculine and feminine soul energy does not always correlate with biological sex, maximum 50% of the time. Especially if your experience is, I feel a girl around me, or I feel there's a baby boy that wants to come to me. You may be right. It may be that they have given you some kind of indication that they are coming as a boy or they're coming as a girl. But in my experience and like working with thousands of women, it's most likely that what you're feeling and what you're sensing is their soul's energy. And you're picking up that energy and you are making an assumption that, oh, boy or a girl. So it's most likely that you're feeling their soul's energy and not necessarily their decision about which body they want to have here on earth. So I hope that makes sense, and I hope that helps to just stretch the edges of your mind a little bit, and just something for you to consider and keep in mind as your own motherhood journey unfolds. Thank you for tuning in to Babies from Beyond. If you've enjoyed this episode, I'd love for you to leave me a review just wherever you listen to your podcasts. Also, head over to Instagram and give me a follow at Born Energy, and check out the show notes for more ways that you can connect with your baby's soul, including one-on-one readings and online programs to support you. Until next time, trust your journey and your baby. Take care.